All right, this video is on the layout and organization of the periodic table. We'll be talking about names of specific groups of elements and color coding to use as a reference throughout the rest of this class. So just a disclaimer, this is the periodic table that we use in honors. Chem 1's periodic table looks slightly different, but the color coding and labeling is still the same, okay? So here we go. The first thing I want to talk about is the fact that there is a black stair-step line on this table, and it might not be on the Chem 1 table, so we'll add it, okay? And that black stair-step line, it does something important for us. I also want you to extend that line, okay? Kind of like this, up here, and then like that. Okay, so this line is called the metalloid line. Now you have a periodic table and you should be labeling just like I am doing so that you can use this as a reference. The metalloid line does something very important for us, and it separates our metals from the non-metals. Okay, so metals are probably exactly what you think. They have metallic properties. A lot of them are silvery in color. They reflect light, things like that, okay? And nonmetals are obviously not metals. So this metalloid line divides the two. All metals lie to the left of the line, and all nonmetals lie to the right, okay? And the reason we extended this line is to include hydrogen. Notice that hydrogen is on technically the upper side or the right-hand side of this line, which makes hydrogen a non-metal. And you should probably know that hydrogen is a gas, so it's definitely not a metal. Okay, so that's the first thing we want to talk about. Second thing we want to talk about is that why are these bottom two rows disconnected from the table? And that's because if you look really closely right here between these elements that I've kind of highlighted, you see the numbers jump very much so, from 57 to 72 and 89 to 104. And that's because these bottom two rows are actually supposed to be inserted right here into the table. And the reason that they're not is because in all seriousness, the table would not fit on a piece of paper. And so what they did was kind of cut and paste, so to speak, to put these other rows at the bottom of the table. So just a little bit of background for you. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is label the organization of the table. And the table is divided into is organized in two ways, with the vertical columns and the horizontal rows. So the vertical columns are called groups. So they go up and down, and they are labeled 1 through 18. So group 1, group 2, group 3, 4, 5, so on and so forth. There used to be an older naming system, but I don't teach it in my class, so for the groups. So those are your groups, and your rows of the table are called periods of the periodic table, and they go from left to right, and they're also labeled 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Now, keeping in mind that these two should be right in here, this is also technically period 6 and period 7. Okay, so now basically we're going to do some color coding to label some specific groups of elements. So you'll probably want markers or crayons or colored pencils or something, and you can do one of two things. You can do like I'm going to do, which is just kind of outline, or you can shade in. But if you shade in, just be careful not to press too hard, because we want to be able to read everything on this table. So the first one we're going to do is group 1, but without hydrogen. Okay, so again, I'm just going to outline for sake of time, and then I'm going to make myself a key, and I'll start down here. So what I have labeled red, they are called the alkali metals. And this is probably a review. You've probably seen this stuff before. And I'm going to go pretty quickly. You can always pause if you get behind. So everybody except for hydrogen in group 1 is called an alkali metal. Group 2 has a very similar name, and they are called the alkaline earth metals. And that's because things like magnesium and calcium are found in the crust of the earth. Okay, so my third is actually going to be this whole middle section right here. So groups 3 through 12. Okay, we refer to 3 through 12 as transition metals. Okay, so that whole section. And then, so underneath the metalloid lines from aluminum and down like this, now you might have some extra elements filled in where I have blanks, and that's okay. Just because this table was a little bit outdated. So what I have is green here. Actually, they get a very generic name, and the green is referred to as just other metals. They don't have a specific name. They're just kind of called other metals, and in a very similar fashion, above the metalloid line, so boron, carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, and hydrogen, they get a generic name of other nonmetals. Okay. All right. Let's see. Need some different colors here. Let's go with pink. So group 17, fluorine, chlorine, bromine, iodine. They get a name that for some reason people seem to not remember very often. I'm not sure why. But they get the name of the halogens. And then finally, group 18, they are the noble gases. And that's probably the most famous group of the table. And they're called noble for a reason. And we will definitely be learning about the noble gases quite a bit in this class. I technically have 2 more left, which are my bottom 2. So let's get some, I don't know, different colors here. So the first row of this bottom section, they are called the lanthanides. The lanthanides, that was a D. I mean a T. Sorry, the lanthanides. And that's actually named after lanthanum, just kind of start the lanthanides. And then, let's do a magenta color. So then the second row of this bottom section, they are named the actinides, and that's named after actinium, kind of in a similar fashion. Okay, so what have we learned in this? Well, we've learned that sections of the periodic table have different names. We've also learned that the table is split into vertical columns called groups, and horizontal rows called periods. And so that's kind of the basic layout of the table. We've also learned that anything to the left of the metalloid line is a metal, and anything to the right is a nonmetal. Okay, so that's basically that one. Now, if you flip your periodic table over, you have the same periodic table, it's just on the back. And so we're going to quickly do some color coding for an upcoming chapter, and this one's very quick, and I'm not going to explain why we're color coding it this way. We will be learning that later. So the first thing I want you to do, you're going to need 4 colors, and we're going to do the same thing and outline, this time groups 1 and 2 in the same color, and including helium. Okay, don't forget to include helium. And then I'll make my key, but we're just not going to learn what to label this until later. Okay? My second one's going to be this kind of whole rectangular section over on this side, over on the right-hand side. Okay, all the same color. And again, you can color it in completely if you want to, or for sake of time, you can just outline like I'm doing. The third section is going to be the whole transition metal section that we just learned about. Okay, oop. So that is my third color. And then my fourth color is going to be the lanthanides and the actinides at the bottom of the table. Okay, and again, there is a reason behind this color coding system. We just have not learned it yet, and we will be learning it in this class. Okay, so that's your basic organization of the periodic table, names of groups, periods, groups, things of that nature.